So for the 12th topic of the course, what we're going to be talking about is attraction. And I want to make a couple things explicitly clear before we start with this whole thing. Number one is when I say attraction, I don't necessarily mean like romantic attraction or even physical attraction. What I mean by attraction is why we like the people we like. Now that could mean, of course, why you like your significant other, your spouse, your partner, or whatever. But it could also mean why you like your best friend or your mom or your brother or your cousin or whatever. So it doesn't have to be a romantic type of love. However, obviously, most people like someone before they love them. So we are actually going to talk about romantic relationships near the end. But I don't always mean, when I say attraction, I don't always mean like romantic attraction. And the second thing I want to say is that a lot of the research in this area has dealt with heterosexual relationships, and I fully understand that there are homosexual relationships and pansexual and asexual and bisexual and all these different kinds of relationships that exist. But that's not a lot of the research that has been done on that. So this stuff mostly is just going to generalize to the heterosexual couples and relationships that we talk about, all right? Especially when we get to the love part near the end. All right, so let's start. What we have to understand is that we have this intense need to belong. Now, this is not a basic human motivation at all, but what research has shown is that when we feel like we belong either to a group, like we talked about last time with groups, or if we belong to like or in a relationship, or we have a best friend, or whatever, that it makes us happy. All right, and we do seek out those types of relationships when we don't have them, and so we know that. Sorry, I gotta get my pen. We know that this intense need is there. Now, it's not a basic motivation again, but we are more or less motivated to try and find these relationships. All right. Now, what we have to do is we have to ask ourselves, what factors lead people to like other people? All right. And there's going to be several things that make us like our friends and our partners and our parents, stuff like that. The first thing that's going to influence liking, so this is number one, is going to be called the propinquity effect. And what the propinquity effect is the idea that we like people who we just interact with. So this is all about, so propinquity is all about the interaction. So it's not so much that you see these people, that you see other people, or that you, think you think they're attractive or they're close to you. This is all about, do they serve some function? Is there some sort of interaction? So this is a study by Festinger and his colleagues, the same Festinger who is all over the place for exam 2. And what Festinger did was he was looking at the propinquity effect, and he had this. He was really looking at blueprints of these apartment complexes that you see in front of you here. And what he did was he went to the doors of these apartment complexes, knocked on the door, and asked how close of a relationship they are with the other people in their apartment building. And what they found is that 41% of people who lived next door to you, that's what adjacent means, next door to you, thought they were your friend. Now, I'm not going to test you on that percentage, but just know that you tend to like the people who are next to you. So if you lived in apartment number 7, you were more likely to be friends with 6 and friends with people who lived in 8 versus, if you lived in 7 and you are trying to interact with person number 5 is a bad example, but number 4. All right. So what's going to happen is you like the people that you're next to. Now, why would this be the case? Well, because they're your neighbor, and sometimes you interact with each other. If you need to borrow a cup of sugar, or if you, if your car breaks down, or what, who are you going to ask? Well, you ask your neighbor. That's what neighbors do. And so that's why, so there is more likely to be some sort of interaction. Now, if you compare a person who lives in 7 versus 4, there's not likely to be much interaction. All right, there's not likely to be much interaction. Also, you're not as likely to be their friend. Now, what Festinger found, interestingly, was in terms of the interaction, people who lived in apartment 1, that's here, and apartment 5, had twice as many relationships as some of the other people. And think about why that is. Look at the layout and the blueprint of this thing. And what you see is that you have stairs, right next to apartments 1 and 5. And so if you are in, let's say, apartment number 8 and you need to go to work, you're going to walk down here, walk down these stairs, and poof, just like that, you're likely to see person 1. And so therefore, there's some interaction there. It's just like when I was in undergrad, we had I lived in an apartment complex for many years, and it looked kind of similar like this actually, but where this number 32 is right here, there was actually a room with the washer dryer. And everyone, because of that, most people were friends with people who lived in apartment 9 and apartment 8. And it's because you see them. This is the only washer and dryer in the whole complex, and so you see them more often, so there's a chance for interaction. And that's all that propinquity is the interaction that exists. All right. Now, what they said is we have two pieces going on here. And what Festinger was very careful to talk about was the person next door effect, the propinquity effect, is not physical distance. Although that plays a role, right? Obviously it plays a role. It's this functional distance. And the functional distance is defined as some aspect of the design that allows interaction to be possible. That's why the person in apartments 1 and 5 were twice as likely to have friends, because of this physical distance. All right, so that's the propinquity effect, and it's all about interaction. All right, it's all about interaction. So like me, where my office is in McCreary Hall, I would honestly say that I'm probably more comfortable talking to or interacting with like Steve Civey, who's Professor Civey, whose office is right next door to me, versus let's say like Professor Berenson, whose office is kind of further away. All right, and it's because if I need something real quick, I'm just going to go to his office and ask, and that's the way it works. All right. So we have propinquity. That's number 1. Check. Number 2. Oh, sorry. Before we get to that, we need to. If I'm going to present on it, I forgot. I have to show you data. I just added this this last semester, so sorry, I forgot. This is a study that backed that up. What I tried to do is find really cool studies, because when you deal with the attraction literature, you're dealing with really cool kind of studies. And what they did here in this particular study was done by Back. They did first-year introductions, and what they did is on the first day of class in the first year of school, think of like a first-year kind of Psych 101 type of course with 300 people in it. What they did was they had people introduce each other, and then based on a seating chart. So they had a set seating chart where you had to sit every day that you went to class. And what they did then is they separated people into 3 groups, kind of post analysis. And what they had is if you sat next to the person, if you're in the same row as the person, or if you're not even close, so that you're not even touching or not even near each other, right? So your seats aren't touching or anything. And then the dependent variable was they asked them, are you still friends with that person 1 year later? So how, and it's not just a yes, no, it's friendship intensity. And what they found is a really cool effect where what you have is if you were in the same row or neighboring seats, you did not differ from each other. But both of these groups differed from the no physical relationship here. All right. So what that means is if you sit next to each other, or if you sit in the same row, you're going to be friends. You're more likely to be friends a year later. And now why? Why is that the case? Well, think about this. If you are studying, it's your first day of school and you're in Psych 101, you're just like, man, I might need a study buddy to help me out. How about you? You sit next to me. We're in the same class. Or what if we get a study group and let's have a couple people in our same row? And that's exactly what happens. They serve some sort of functional purpose. There is some sort of functional distance there where what you're going to do is you are going to be friends with people who you interact with. And who are you likely to interact with according to Back and his findings? You're likely to interact with the person who's next to you or in the same row as you. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is proximity. Proximity is basically how close you are to someone. It's kind of like Festinger's physical distance idea, although he was not analyzing that. Remember, propinquity is not proximity, but the two are highly correlated, obviously. If you're going to interact with someone, you're clearly near them. And so we're going to like people who are close to us. And why is that the case? What Zion argued, this is the same Zion who did the cockroach stuff, Zion argued mere exposure. And so what the mere exposure effect is the idea that we like things the more we see them or the more we hear them. Like, let me give you an example. We do this all the time in the media. For me, it was the movie The Big Lebowski. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but the first time I saw it, I was like, this is a terrible movie. Then I saw it again, and I was like, it's all right. And then by like the fifth time I saw it, it's like, this is an amazing, amazing movie. And it's just because you just are exposed to it more and more, and then you start to like it more and more. That's what the mere exposure effect is. And to test this, what Rhodes and his colleagues did, to kind of show the validity of the mere exposure effect, is he had participants look at 24 pictures of faces 4 times randomly. So there were, I'm trying to do math in my head, there were 96, if I did that right. They saw 96 pictures, that's 24 times 4. So they saw the same 24 pictures 4 times, just in a randomized order. And then, after they did that, they got to view test faces. And some of these test faces they've seen before. Some are brand new. They have never seen them before. And then basically what they did is they rated how much did they like the face they saw. Right, so the y-axis, I don't know why I cut it off. The y-axis here is how much did you like them. And what they found is that for the individual faces, so these are the test faces, what they saw is that if you've seen the face before, you liked it significantly more than if it was a new face. Now, what you can do statistically is really cool, is they have these computer programs now where you can take any number of faces, let's say 24 of them, and you can push them all together to make one just average face, right? So averaging 24 faces together. And that's what's happening on this side over here. And once again, they found that if you've seen the face before, the average of them, you liked it more than if you didn't. Hence the mere exposure effect. All right, we like things that we see repeatedly. All right. Now, finally, the last thing is going to be similarity. I'm sorry, this is the third thing. Sorry, number 3. There's 4. Sorry, 3. So we got propinquity, proximity, and now similarity. And similarity is the idea that we like people who are like us. Now, this, I'm sure you guys know of a lot of people who are dating or best friends or married even, and they're completely opposites of each other. And so the question becomes, which is true? Do we like opposites, or do we like people who are similar to us? And the question and the answer clearly shows similarity wins. And what I want you to do is pause this video in a second, and I want you guys to just copy and paste these 3 links here. All right, do that real quick, and then when it's all done, restart this one. Okay. So I hope you did that. If you do that, what you'll see is these are all dating website commercials. And the first one is, and there's lots of these out there that I didn't even show. There's like a blackonly.com. There's one apparently for Jewish people, a student tells me. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of different kinds of these. And what these two have in common is going to be that they are really, really good if you want to hook up and just have sex, right? And that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. If that's your jam, I'm not judging. That's the way life is sometimes. Great. Good for you. However, for a long-lasting relationship, this is the one that has been shown to work, that and matchonly.com. And the reason why is because you are matching people based on 24 or more dimensions of similarity. Here, on the Farmers Only and the Christian Mingle, you're only doing one explicit factor. I get that if you're a farmer and you meet another farmer online, you probably have similar values and similar working hours, and I get that. But that's not what these websites are going for. They're trying to say, oh, hey, look, you guys are both farmers. Let's have you guys go on a date and see what happens. And once again, if you just want to have sex, that's fine. I'm sure that'll work. But guess what? If you want a longer lasting kind of committed relationship, then similarity can't just be one factor. It has to be on several different factors that you're rating similarity on. All right. So when we talk about similarity, we don't mean just like, oh, you guys share some one common factor. Oh, no. What we talk about for similarity is we're talking about several different ones. All right. Think about your best friend. I bet you're similar to them on a lot of ways. You like the same things. You like the same types of movies and the same types of food, and you hang out with the same people. And you either both drink or you both don't drink, or, you have a lot of similarities. And that's what makes you and your best friend click so well, is that you're similar to each other. And that's just the way these things work. And that's how similarity works.